is it better for you to time it, to be able to mute it than Diane?
I can do it. Yeah, there's no problem with that.
I mean, I'm just thinking out loud because then, yeah, if we have to mute it, then.
I'll probably just put it on my cell phone, the timer, and then I'll let them speak, and then I'll just mute them when the 3 minutes is over. Is that
Well,
good?
I just mean if it gets to that. I mean, it might not even get to that. I'm just, if it does.
Okay.
I just thought maybe it might be easier than Diane trying to time it and then you having to do that.
Okay, that sounds good.
Okay. Gosh, everybody's getting on early.
John had an ultimatum.
10 minutes early or else. All right, we are live streaming, everyone, so that should be good. Diane, just so you know, I had to combine the work sessions on the open media end, but I'll fix it so the agendas show right in the morning.
Is she on there?
She's here. She's just
Not
Got it.
Yeah.
Diane, did you hear what I said? That if he wants to time it, then if we have to mute something, he can do it right away?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay, because then it's like, yeah, because you're not in the same room, right?
Right. I'm at home and Jonathan's at home.
Okay. Okay, how come I don't see anyone again? Ah, there we go. I need to get my laptop set up better instead of this thing.
I can help if you need help with it.
Yeah, I've had it sitting here because I was working from home for a couple weeks there. And I know it's got the camera on it. I just haven't done it.
Everyone, hello, my name is Virgil Schaus. I thought I'd take this moment of silence to introduce myself. I am the
Hi,
applicant.
Virgil.
I'm the applicant. Hello, Cindy.
I'm Cindy Olson.
Are
Where's
you
everybody else?
all commissioners?
If they want to introduce themselves, Chuck.
Virgil, my name's Chuck Howard. Glad to meet you.
Hi.
My name is Pete Pappas. I'm architect working with Virgil. Nice to meet you all. Good to meet you, Pete.
719358. Can you tell me your name so I can put it into the Zoom meeting?
Zach Van Dyke with New Era Construction. I'm Virgil South's GC.
Thank you.
Gosh, we're all early tonight.
Also, my son is joining us in the background, Jacob.
Chris, did you introduce yourself?
I have not yet. I'm Chris Tanney. I'm with Pappas Architecture as well.
Good to meet you.
Diane, the first one's not the public, it's not a public meeting, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
Oh, for the,
CRC Park minor subdivision.
okay. So it's two public meetings.
Right.
Okay.
Our
My
public
apologies.
hearings.
I was thinking that one just moves to recommend it.
My apologies for not clarifying that on the agenda.
I got it.
I don't know if I understood that. 2 planning commission hearings?
Public hearings.
Public hearings.
So one planning commission and then one city council, is that right?
No,
No,
we have
they're-
2 items on the agenda is what it
Oh,
is.
oh, I apologize. I'm probably speaking out of line. I'm sorry.
No, you're
Okay.
fine.
Virgil, your public hearing is the second public hearing on the agenda tonight.
Okay. 1 minute, we can start, right?
Yep.
Okay, I guess let's start. I'll call to order the Planning Commission meeting of December 2nd, 2020. Roll call
Cindy Olson,
here.
Kate Collier,
Sorry, here.
Don Reimer, Chuck Howard,
Present.
Ursula Kruzaligi,
Here?
Jordan Hudson, Tracy Stokes.
You're muted.
We see you.
Tracy, you're.
Hi, here. Sorry.
Okay, approval of the minutes for November 4th, 2020. Do we have a motion?
I'll move to approve the minutes from November 4th, 2020.
I'll second that.
Roll call?
Cindy Olson,
Yes?
Kate Collier,
Yes.
Don Reimer,
You guys keep your phones unmuted.
Chuck
Don,
Howard,
Yes.
Ursula Kruzaligi.
Yes.
okay, okay, so now we'll go into the public meetings. We have 2 public hearings tonight. One is on the CBC, the CRC Park Minor Subdivision, and the other is the XL Minor Street LLC. So we'll go into the first public hearing, and the time is 6:01. And we'll start with staff report. Barb?
Thank you, Cindy. So this minor subdivision is a city-initiated subdivision that is a result of the realignment of the Colorado Boulevard. So I thought it was easier and more fun to show you the rendering rather than the actual plat. But the actual plat did go out as a referral. So this is the area right around the visitor center. And as you see, as a result of moving some lines and getting the property from CDOT, the visitor center is going to get a little bit of green area, or already has. And then you can see sort of what is planned for the park. So this is something that probably should have happened, Andy, a year ago, but we're just getting to it now. So it's pretty simple.
Okay, so the applicant would be the city,
Correct.
right? Okay, so do we have any public comment on this? Diane, Jonathan?
No.
Okay.
I will let you know, Cindy, that I did have a call from a gentleman, Bob Blair. He had a little bit of a hard time reading the plat, so I sent him my staff report, and then we had a follow-up discussion. So that was the only sort of public comment that we got, but we're sort of taking those now directly.
Okay, do the commissioners, anybody have any questions for Barb?
No, it seems very straightforward.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, so, gosh, we'll close the public meeting at 6:03. And then I'll ask for a motion.
Okay. I
he get muted? I don't think we heard him. Did anybody hear him? No.
No.
Can you do that again, Chuck?
Okay, we'll try it again.
Okay.
I move to approve this minor subdivision of the CRC Park.
Second,
Roll call.
Cindy Olson,
Yes.
Kate Collier,
yes.
Don Reimer,
Yes.
Chuck Howard,
Yes,
Ursula Kruzlegi.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Now we'll go into our second public meeting, and the time is 6:04 PM. And it's a public hearing on the 2800 Minor Street rezoning from R2 to R3 zoning and final plat development plan. Let's start with the staff report. And I think just to keep this moving along, as the commissioners, if we come up with questions, jot them down. And then when we go to the questioning, we can question the applicant and Barb then at that time. Does that sound good? Just to keep going? Okay. So then we don't end up scattered all over the place. Staff report?
Okay, this is Mike. I'll be presenting the staff report. The city received a rezoning application from Excel Minor Street, which is the applicant for the project, to rezone the mobile home park at 2800 Minor Street from R2 zoning to R3 zoning. The R2 zoning allows single-family dwellings and duplexes. The R3 zoning allows multifamily housing. In addition, the applicant has submitted a final development plan with this rezoning plan that proposes 69 multifamily units. Approval of the final development plan is contingent upon approval of the proposed rezoning. The property, I think most everyone's familiar with the location. It's on the south side of Minor Street. It consists of two existing parcels of the Daniel Aspel Placer and the Dennis Favre Placer. As you know, the existing properties, manufactured housing and homes. The owner of the mobile home park seeks redevelopment that would result in the eviction of the residents in the home park. Or if the owner of the mobile home park seeks redevelopment that would result in the eviction of residents in the homes in the park, state law requires the owner to provide a minimum 6-month notice to each homeowner in the park. The property is 50,000 square feet, or just about an acre and a quarter, or an acre and about 1.2 acres. The surrounding zoning is C2 to the north. The existing zoning is R2 to the east and R2 to the west, and the south side is the Interstate 70 right-of-way. The terrain basically slopes up towards the interstate. There are some challenging aspects to the site. One is that it is against Interstate 70 in terms of the noise to residents who live there now who would live in the proposed development. Also, the solar angle map from the East End Overlay District shows that at noon during the winter time, more than half of the property is in the shade. In terms of vehicle access, there are currently three driveways from Minor Street that serve the mobile home park. There is also an easement along the east edge of the site that serves adjacent property to the east. As I mentioned, the applicant is proposing the rezoning from R2 to R3. The companion application shows the FDP would replace the existing mobile home park with 69 multifamily dwelling units. As I mentioned before, because the R2 does not allow multifamily buildings, if the R2 zoning is not approved, then the FDP zoning would not be able to occur as submitted. In November 26, 2019, there was a community meeting, and notes from that meeting are attached to the staff report. Now, in determining whether or not to approve an application for a rezoning, the Chapter 21 of the Municipal Code sets out several criteria. Is whether the proposed zoning is in conformity with the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan, the East End Action Plan, basically shows it as a potential location for multifamily housing. More specifically, the East End Action Plan shows this area as this particular property could be up to the buildings could be up to 4.5 stories in height or 57 feet. The long-term plan, again, in the comprehensive plan and the East Action Plan, the long-term vision of how land would be used is that the R2 area that adjoins the property to the east and the west would also be going to this R3, allowing multifamily density. Second criterion, whether there have been material changes in the character of the neighborhood, such as justifying a change in the rezoning. There haven't been substantial changes to the character of the neighborhood. And I should note at this point, it isn't needed that a particular application meet all of the criteria. Sometimes it may be a matter of using the A and B as an example. It may be because it calls for this. But in the case of B, maybe there haven't been changes. Okay, C, whether the proposed rezoning will tend to preserve and promote property values in the neighborhood. It's likely that the proposed change from the mobile and manufactured home park to multifamily would likely increase property value. D, whether development of the property is in accordance with will be in harmony and compatible with surrounding land use development in the area. In terms of the existing situation, this proposal would introduce higher density housing, taller buildings into the neighborhood in terms of conditions today. In terms of the long-range plan of the city, as I mentioned above, or mentioned earlier, is that the plan is that properties to the east and the west would also be in the same R3 higher density district. I should mention the property to the north is a mixture of, across Minor Street to the north is a mixture of residences and commercial properties, with the commercial properties facing north, the houses facing south towards Minor Street. Area E is, just a moment, whether the property can be reasonably used and developed as presently. The existing property, if it were to remain as an R2 zoning, it could remain as it is, as a mobile home park, or it could be developed into single-family homes or duplexes if the property is not rezoned. The proposed rezoning will affect traffic congestion in the area. Contained within your packet is a copy of the traffic study. The general conclusions, and this was reviewed by staff, is that this project would not create a significant amount of additional traffic that at this point, if it were built, would not require improvements to the road to handle the traffic. Further, the mobile home park as units, according to standards that have been developed throughout the country and are used here in Colorado and in many communities, is that a mobile home or a manufactured home is likely to produce more trips per day in a car than a multifamily unit. So the net impact is actually less than the total number of trips that are listed in the traffic report, and that is mentioned in the traffic report. Criterion G, whether the proposed rezoning will promote the public welfare. The proposed rezoning would allow a substantial increase in the number of market rate dwelling units that could be located on the property. The final development plan shows 69 dwelling units, which is an increase of 47 units over the existing approximately on the site. And based upon looking at the total housing supply in the city, this project would represent about a 5% increase in the number of homes that are in the city. Whether the property was properly zoned when its current zoning was established, the R2 density is an appropriate zoning for the existing density. In some cases, the layout of the units today within the park are not consistent with what the zoning setbacks would be if it were to meet current R2 zoning standards. Whether denial of the proposed rezoning would preclude any reasonable economic use of the property. If proposed rezoning is denied, the existing use could continue. Under the existing zoning, under the existing zoning, the property could be developed for use by single dwellings or duplexes. J, whether any other zoning classification would afford reasonable use of the property. As I mentioned, it is possible to use the property for lower density residential uses than the proposed R3. The existing use, single family, are duplexes. There are difficulties with using it for commercial use. That being is that there isn't, the road in front of it is basically a residential, Minor Street at this location is a residential serving street. And so it doesn't take the kind of traffic that most business, commercial uses, retail uses would be looking for. And then with respect to industrial uses, again, as a local road, it doesn't large traffic. Criterion K, the denial of the proposed rezoning would impose an undue hardship on the owner. As far as the applicant could speak to this, but other than at this point, what we can identify as staff is that the applicant bears the time and costs that have been associated with this application. L, whether the proposed rezoning will promote or disturb stability in the zoning of the neighborhood. As I mentioned, the proposal would introduce taller buildings, higher density housing into a neighborhood that on the south side of Minor Street has single family to the east and to the west, and to the north towards Minor Street. If you look at future, the proposed future use based upon the land use plan, the long-term plan is for the residential area to the west, to the east, to also be rezoned. Okay. What I'll do is go ahead and talk about the other two parts of this application that are before you here tonight. So the second part is the final development plan and the criteria that apply to it. As I mentioned earlier, the proposal is for 69 dwelling units that would be located in that would be broken or distributed up among 4 buildings on the site. There are now 3 driveways serving the mobile home park. This would be replaced by a single 2-way drive loop that has 2 driveway connections instead of 3 to Minor Street. There is also an easement property to the east of this property that would remain. There are 2 common areas on the site, a detention area and a dog park, and a common site located along Minor Street, and a sitting area at the southeast corner of the site. The project would be constructed in two phases with 2 buildings in each phases. Now, in terms of criteria, the Chapter 21 of the Municipal Code, the Land Development Regulations, the criteria are basically, does it meet the standards that are contained in Chapter 21, the Land Development Regulations? So in terms of the proposed use, if the R3 zoning is approved, that's an allowed use. In the proposed setbacks, height, open space, number of parking spaces, minimum size of units, all of those factors, it does comply with the standards in Chapter 21. Additionally, in Chapter 26, East End Overlay District, this project also complies with the standards that are listed in the East End Overlay Zoning District. With to sustainability standards, I'll come to that next, but the final aspect of the development plan to mention are the design standards. The design standards is something that we spent quite a bit of time with the applicant this year in terms of meeting what the standards are. Some of the standards that are in chapter 21 in terms of the appearance of the building or the appearance of the project, they are open in terms of interpretation. However, what the applicant has submitted, it does meet the language of the code. It may be at some point, Planning Commission, City Council may want to revisit those standards and maybe provide some further explanation as to what the standards mean. But with respect to what is the wording and the reasonable reading of the language, the project appears to comply with the standards, even though with the applicant's architect, we did have some disagreements on some of the aspects. Finally, I know that this has come before Planning Commission Council before, but when the chapter 21, when there were revisions in the past few years, I believe to the code sustainability requirement, where a project is required to either meet certain environmental or certain sustainability standards that are contained within chapter 1, or request a waiver. And in requesting the waiver, the applicant needs to present that there will be a reasonable effort made to comply with other standards. Now, I should mention that probably many people have heard of the LEED standards. There actually are two sets of sustainability standards. LEED are the ones that are commonly used by businesses, by the private sector, and an increasing number of local governments like Idaho Springs are adopting our reference to the LEED type of standards. I'll note, though, that most buildings that are constructed in the country and in the state don't actually apply to get certification. The second set of standards are referred to as either the 3E or Portland standards. Those are used by the federal government and are used in Europe. And what the applicant is essentially proposing here is to use a portion of this other set of standards that would fall under the broad umbrella of 3E when they are referring to the multifamily energy policies of the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. So the applicant, there are attachments to the staff report where they've gone into more detail as to how they are proposing to meet this alternative set of standards. And it should be noted that the standard that they say they are working towards achieving in the project is actually considered a relatively high standard in terms of energy use in the energy use in the project, in terms of trying to minimize the amount of energy needed and thereby further the goal of sustainability. The staff report noted the various city staff and outside agencies that received copies of the report. All the comments have been addressed. New comments that we just got in from the city's consulting engineer, JVA. Those comments relate more to construction stage that would occur if this project is approved, where there are a number of drainage standards that JVA looked at in detail. So in terms of what was needed at the planning stage, I believe all of these comments have been addressed by the applicant. In terms of public notice and public comments, types of notice were provided. Letters were sent out to properties actually in a little more than 300 feet. We actually select addresses a little further out than 300 feet to make sure that we don't miss properties that are on that edge of the 300 feet to receive a notice letter. Also, the notice was placed in the newspaper and the property was posted with a sign. As of today, there is only one public comment one citizen comment that I received yesterday. A resident of the mobile home park did contact city staff and forwarded that contact to me. I spoke with the person on the phone. The letter was sent out, or a memo was sent out earlier today that listed those comments. Most of the comments that the resident listed were actually comments that are more directed to the developer of the property rather than to the city or planning commission. And most of the points that are listed in that brief staff memo are gathering more information, as the resident of the existing park said, is that she was at the point of trying to get information so she can plan ahead in terms of what she needs to do. These comments also have been forwarded to the applicant. And I'll note that both when Alan was the planner and since then, there have been several communications with the applicant regarding the existing residents and so the question of what's going to occur afterwards, there has been some discussion about that. But again, these comments are more directed towards the comments received from the resident are probably more related to the applicant than they are to the city. The summary is as I mentioned, we've received these three parts to the application. The staff recommendation is that we find that the rezoning application complies with the criteria for approval. Number 2, the final development plan complies with the criteria for approval. And the sustainability plan, item number 3, staff finds proposed sustainability measures comply with the criteria for approval. Because the item number 2, final development plan, hinges on whether or not the rezoning is approved, the staff recommendation is that these be considered when you make your motion, is that there be separate motions for each of these 3 items, that they not be combined together. A second suggestion to you is that when you do make a motion on any of these projects, it would probably be helpful if at the end of making a motion, such as whether to approve or not the project, that you also note that this is based upon some finding regarding the project. A finding is basically the reason why you are voting yes or voting no on the project. A finding can be as simple as the criteria does or does not comply with the criteria of approval, but it would be helpful if you did say, after I move to do such and such, to then state the finding or reason why you are making that motion. And again, that should be based upon, does it meet the criteria for approval or it does not meet the criteria for approval? And there are proposed motions contained in the staff report, and that is the staff report. And I can answer any questions you may have.
Okay, do we want to go to questions, or should we let the applicant go first and then do questions? Is everybody ready to wait and let the applicant go?
We can let the applicant go, Cindy.
Okay,
Yes.
I think that's cleaner. So, okay. So now we'll go to the applicant for a presentation.
Hello, everybody. I'm Virgil Schaus with the Altitude Development Company. I just have a couple technical corrections. The site is 101,000 square feet, just over 2 acres, and the new proposed improvements are 52,000. It's easy to mix that up. I just wanted to make that clarification. When I bought this property, I didn't buy it to run it as a mobile home park, and I inherited what it is. We created an opportunity fund as afforded to us by the federal government to put substantial improvement here, and that's what we would really like to do. And we spent a lot of time working with both Alan and now Mike on creating something that we can all be proud of, and I believe the residents can live in dignity. When I did meet with Alan first, he had told me how there was a 800 housing unit deficit there, and a lot of people were focusing on building high-end stuff that could sell, which wasn't serviced in the city. And that what was really needed was workforce housing. So that's what we set out to do, is build something that would help meet the deficit for workforce housing for the existing businesses and the proposed growth that I understand we have with the mines and some of the amusement parks and stuff like that that are planned in the future. As far as what are you going to do with the existing residents there, a little more clarification. Only the ones that own their homes and are renting the lots require a 6-month notice. And right now there are only 2 of those. There were 4, but when I purchased the property, this gentleman abandoned 2 of them, and we're in the process of filing paperwork to transfer those titles. As for what will happen to the rest of the residents, you know, they can all apply to the new apartment complex. That decision won't be mine. I'll hire a professional company to make that decision. But to be candid with you, during this COVID experience, 80 to 90% of them are way behind. We have $40,000 of account receivables that we probably will never recover. That's my issue. I'm not complaining, but I'm telling you the reality of the situation is when COVID is done, many of them will be evicted anyway. I do care for them and I want to work for them. And I know there was one lady in particular who has a disabled son that owns a mobile home park, and I spoke to her. And it happens, I know the gentleman who just purchased a mobile home park up the road, and I've just started discussions with him, but he has 2 non-paying tenants that are problematic. He'll evict them when COVID is done. And I will try to work with him to relocate her and maybe even the other person who needs to be relocated. And I don't believe that their units they own can be removed. I don't think they're movable, they'll collapse. So, you know, we'd be willing to help relocate them and, you know, demolish those units. I think I've covered what I want. Feel free to ask questions, please.
Okay, we'll go to public comment before, and then we'll start asking questions. Jonathan, I don't see you on my screen, but do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
Yes, we do have a couple of people.
Okay.
Andy Luco is the first one that signed up, and she's on the call right now. So I'll just pull up my timer app really quick.
Okay. Hi, Candy. And then we limit it to 3 minutes. Candy, and at that point, then Jonathan will cut it off. And will you state your name for the record, please?
Yeah, my name is Candace Luco. I own the property at 2727 Minor Street. I've owned the property, lived there, worked there, raised my family there for the last 35 years. It's directly across the street from 2800 Minor Street, whose owners are here tonight. Because I'm only allowed 3 minutes, I'm requesting that you guys grab a pencil and a piece of paper and jot down a couple reference points to look up on your own prior to deciding the change of the zoning from R2 to R3. For the record, I strongly oppose this rezoning. It is imperative that the commission delay this zone change until the developer provides comprehensive studies showing the traffic and shading at a minimum. I understand that we have seen some of these, but I'm going to tell you that with the situation where we actually have a visual of a structure this size at Riverbend, living there for a long, long time, the shading will be a problem. So I implore you to take some time to exercise your due diligence before hastily jumping into a zoning change that is not in any way in the best interest of the existing property owners, the neighborhood, or the city of Idaho Springs. Require a traffic study. I'm confident it will demonstrate that the current Minor Street infrastructure will not support this project of this size, which happens to be almost double the size of the Riverbend project. So you have a visual, which is a great thing. You can see how big this is going to be. The one that they want to build is almost twice as big. That's why I think there needs to be a shadow study. The type of housing unit does not conform to the existing neighborhood norms. This project does not conform to either the city's comprehensive plan or the East End Action Plan. And I will give you those places to look up in your own plans, which all of you are familiar with because your names are on these plans. This project, I don't feel there's been sufficient time for the current property owners to voice their support or opposition of this project. For my last 3 points, and this is where I hope you jot these down, I'll refer you to the Comprehensive Plan, East End Action Plan. Comprehensive Plan, your vision statement on page 16. On page 17, the land use and community character. On page 32, land use and community character, objectives, bullets number C, E, F, and H. And please read page 35 of the Comprehensive Plan where it talks about housing. On the East End Action Plan, edges and transitions, page 35, and Test Site C, page 65 of the East End Action Plan, specifically speaks to this specific project. And I'm going to read you what it says, so I'll probably get cut off, but please read what it says in there. It's important. They did a test site study in your own plan, and it says, various development scales were studied, but with the existing cottages along Minor Street, the constitution of this type of building seemed to provide the most appropriate character and density. This area could offer market rate and affordable housing alternatives to create mixed income housing community if desired. Additional density and housing diversity would be created throughout through integrated duplexes. Taller architecture would block views into the town, create units with undesirable views, and create inconsistent character in the neighborhood.
Okay.
And all of those things are decided to say that. Okay, I know I'm cut off. Thank you.
Thank you, Candy.
Tracy Mueller, are you here? I think you might have logged in and I'm not 100% sure if she's still here. I think we might have lost her.
Okay.
I could try to call her if you guys want. She had signed up for comment, and I do have her
Okay.
number.
Yeah, yeah, we can wait. I mean, I think we should give people the opportunity.
Is this for homeowners or everybody?
It's public comment.
Okay,
It can be anybody in town.
understood. Just wanted to ask.
She didn't answer.
Okay. Did we have any others?
No.
Chairwoman, it's common practice to allow the applicant to respond to any comments that were made. It's not to give a due presentation, but to be given the opportunity to respond to any comments that were made from the public.
I
We have a
understand
procedure
that,
that we
but
follow, so I think we have like a certain procedure we follow. I think maybe at the, I mean, he has rights to rebut at a certain point. I don't know if we're up to that point yet, but definitely just not, I caution against after each person speaking, but definitely at
There's
some
only
point.
one person there, right? That up from the public?
Okay, so we have a procedure if we could just follow it. And also maybe if we could just say, is there anybody else in the public who wants to either raise their hand or unmute themselves, just to make sure that we want to make sure, you know, that everyone who's here is being heard. I think that's what we did with the gap, but I just want to make sure.
Okay. Yeah. Is there anybody else from the public that's on that wants to raise their hand and have a comment? I'm looking at the list. No? Okay.
Cindy,
Is it better to let the applicant respond to the public comments at this point or after we go into discussion?
I'd really
For
rather after,
deliberation.
I think so too.
Okay, after we go into discussion.
I just feel like it would be a precedent that would be set that, when we do have a normal kind of meeting where we're all in the same room and we do have more activity, which I actually think that we would have much, much more public input if this was a regular meeting in the city hall. I just don't want to set the precedent that the applicant is responding to each and every person.
Right. Okay, so at this point, let's go to the commissioners and any questions to the staff and the applicant.
I've got things, but they're not all questions. They're many are just statements. I'm going to why doesn't somebody else on the team go ahead and go first?
Okay, I had a few questions. I'll start. One of the things in the packet, and Mike, you might be able to answer that, or Barb, it's talking that the comp plan proposes that the property and the adjoining R2 areas be changed to R3. I could not find that in the comp plan.
What it refers to is going to the higher density multifamily is what you see in both the plan and I believe in chapter 26 of the municipal code. I can look for the specific section, but it does show this entire area that is now R2 long-term going to the higher density use.
Okay, so the way you stated in here is not accurate then, because it does not say that, right?
Okay, I'll
It's what
need to
we're
check
saying.
that to see if it actually says R3.
Okay, yeah, I could not find it in there, so. Okay, this is a question to Virgil. What are the projected rates that you're thinking for the cost of the rentals?
Okay, I can tell you what I've got now, but it's subject to change. We've got a studios at 800. We have 1 bedrooms at 1250. We have 720 square foot 2 bedrooms at 1550. And then we have a little bit larger 2 bedrooms at 1650.
725 square feet at 1550, was that right?
Yes.
Dang.
Cost of construction is expensive. But I did try, and I don't mean to be poking too much fun.
Okay, and then
I did try to build it cost effective to keep the rates as low as possible to.
And then I had a question, and this might be for Mike. And it's about the retaining walls and the replacing the new retaining wall. And it's in agreement with the owners of the west neighboring properties. Do we have those agreements? Do we know if we'll get the agreements? I guess I'm envisioning, is that a cost to that homeowner for that retaining wall?
I think normally that would be something that would be handled at the next step if this project were approved, in terms of having agreements in terms of things that have been indicated in the plan that was submitted that needed to be done. So that type of agreement, I wouldn't see it being at this stage, although you certainly could ask for it at this stage. Okay,
yeah, I guess it's something, it seems like we have a lot of things in here that haven't been agreed upon or done. The traffic study, as an example, kept stating that they had very little numbers and stuff. To me, it looked like there wasn't much of an effort in that. And I'm gonna put it out there. I think one of the things that bothers me, the whole thing about all this, is why we did not go into a work session and discuss a lot of this before we're sitting here with this rezoning and everything sitting here in front of us, when there's probably a lot of questions and discussion here. I know I have a lot. And at this point, I'm not comfortable with moving forward with this right now at all. I probably have 20 other questions, but I'll let somebody else, do they have some questions? Kate?
I have a few things. So let me start by saying, going back to the comp plan and the intention of this particular area, my memory serves that the trailer park was not a part of our density housing and I think storefront. We are looking at the streetscape from the Colorado Boulevard aspect. So to be very clear, I have taken the shadow study all through town very seriously. I mean, when we went for the clinic on Minor Street, that was a huge concern for Planning Commission. And I think one of my big questions right off the bat is, are you planning on leveling that terrain? I was driving around there today. Those roads are fairly steep. I'm going to guess that the highest part of that terrain is 20 feet above Minor, but it might be more. Are we leveling that all the way up to the retaining wall for I-70 so that really you're only going for 3 stories? Because if you're going on top of that existing terrain, we're looking at, like you said, 57 feet, which is, I mean, to my knowledge, that is not a skyscape that we're looking for in Idaho Springs.
35
so my first
feet,
question
maybe.
is, are we leveling the terrain?
Should I answer this or Mike?
It's either one, whoever has the answer.
Okay, I wanted to clear up some misconceptions here. Currently it's zoned R2 and R2 allows 57 feet. Our proposed zonings are R3 and we're only building 35 feet. So we're doing shorter than what it's allowed existing. I heard that said twice, once by Candy and once by you, Kate. That's not true. And the traffic study is legit and done by an engineer who stamped it and signed it and did counts. I don't know what more you would want than the study that we have. If you were able to articulate it, maybe we could address it, but I don't know how to address that comment. It's a real legit traffic study.
Sorry, did he answer your question?
Did somebody have a question there?
I don't know about the terrain. I'm going to defer to my architect, please. Thank you.
This is Pete Pappas, and the terrain is flattened somewhat as you go towards the highway, and the 3 apartment buildings themselves are set a bit lower than the existing grade as it comes apart, about 2 feet. Again, there is detention we put in there also and grading in order to bring this to a point where, you know, we're not going on top of the existing grade as we come around the corner. We had engineering standards we had to keep with respect to the grades on the parking lot and the drive aisles and such like that. So it does sit a bit lower. I don't have the exact dimension. I think it sits about a foot and a half lower in a couple of different places as we come down, especially the 2 buildings that are furthest to the north, which are kind of back up to East Minor Street.
So again, the answer is yes or no, that we're going to level that terrain.
It is leveled a bit. It is not,
but not from what the existing height, which is fairly high. You're not leveling it all the way down so that it's level with Minor Street. I just want a yes or no.
No. It's not coming level entirely with Minor Street. It sits about 4 feet above Minor Street right now.
Okay. So next on my questions, why are you trying to change from our energy standard to the HUD home standard?
There are just several different methods to do it. The LEED standard tends to be it's actually more expensive to comply with, but the difference between the 2 of them is very minor. And that's why we're asking for the waiver to it with respect to how you go through the process for the HUD standard versus the LEED standard.
Well, for the record, another meeting that I was in, we were very strict and very particular about following the most strict standards for Idaho Springs. So that's I just want that to be on the record. I'm trying to find what was the original proposal for Virgil's original development. So I think this is a new proposal. What was the original amount of housing for this particular unit lot area?
If I may answer, I believe we're the same, pretty much the same, because the code requirements, kind of mandate how we were going to develop this and how many units we could develop on it. I don't believe it was much of a difference, was it, Peter?
No, there wasn't. Mostly the revisions that we went through is as we were massaging the parking counts. There is a requirement that you have 50% open space, which we do meet. And then there's the requirement regarding the number of parking spaces required is based upon the number of units and the size of those units. So therefore, a 2-bedroom unit requires more parking than the studio. We did balance everything, and most of it, and I think Mike can speak to that a little bit, most of the revisions in the plans were architectural and what the building looked like, how we break up the building with respect to facades, making sure that we meet with the design requirements. So as any project, it evolves from one to another, but the number of units has stayed substantially the same.
And that's what from going through the files and what had been submitted while Alan was with the city, is that the project looks largely like it did at the time of the community meeting as it does today. There was, I believe, originally at one time, there was one larger building that was broken into 2 buildings, which is the arrangement that you now see on the site. There was an earlier version, I think, that had, I think it was 3 buildings instead of 4. And the bigger building in that scheme, I believe, was broken into 2.
Right, the one in the middle.
All right, so I have another comment, more or less. So we've heard 2 different ways of describing these properties. I heard affordable housing, and we also heard workforce housing. Market rate is neither of those, just for the record. And Virgil, what you are stating is going for an 800, a studio apartment going for 800, a 1-bedroom for 15 or 12. These are market rate prices. These are not affordable homes or workforce housing prices. Just, I want everybody to be aware of that too, because these are very loosely used terms. Right now, this is all I have, but I hope that somebody else will open up another conversation, and I'm going to go through my notes as I listen.
I would like to be able to comment on your comment, Kate, if I may, please. We're talking about, I keep saying workforce housing rates, and I don't want to build affordable housing. I'm not getting subsidized here. So we're doing our best to build what will serve the city. I want to enter into this with a partnership with the city. I'm not coming in here just trying to bully in some expensive project and force it on Idaho Springs. I'm trying to work with you to build something that is needed. And I need to share a little. I never wanted to run a mobile home park, and I have over the last year. You know what kind of rents I get for a 40-year-old beat up mobile home that wind blows through? $1,500 a month. I'm trying to improve.
I did know that, yes.
I'm trying to improve this situation. So you want to talk about market rates, affordable housing, and all this and that. We got to look at what we have and what we're trying to bring. I can keep this mobile home. I can backfill it with manufactured homes with foundations, and I can improve the value and leave your community if you don't want me here as a partner. I just want to put that out there, but I do want to work with you. I do have some funds set in an opportunity zone to do something that we can all agree on, but there are alternatives. Thank you.
Okay, I think we got off track a little there. I think the discussion is going from the R2 to R3 and the questioning of the density of it. And I know we keep talking about the East End overlay, but I also recall that it was a few months ago, we all met as a commission and council, and what the vision for Idaho Springs was as far as housing. And I do believe, and Mike and Barb, you were involved in this, that these high densities was lower on the list, that everybody was looking at more townhomes and condominiums or single family homes than these big high densities, especially when you look at putting them into a residential area. I just wanted to make that point. If if we all recall that. Do any of the other commissioners have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Who is
I
that?
would like,
Lucy?
yes,
Sorry, okay, sorry, I don't see you, so,
all right.
okay, go ahead.
So I would like to, I guess, request more clarification about something that I'm not completely understand. On the fact sheet from the HUD multifamily energy policies, the first, where it says other questions, number 1, it says, what to do about surplus language in the new form, HUD, blah, blah, blah. It's a question, and the answer is, if the intent is to certify green, strike out the language of affordability. Vice versa, if the intent is to certify affordable. No one should certify to both, in as much as no further reduction of MIPs is possible. It is either or. So I am not really sure what this means. So excuse my ignorance, but I would like to request that anybody can help me understand this a little better, because I think we're talking about using this other way of going green, I guess, or being sustainable or that. And, but then it seems like it's either affordable or sustainable. So can you please help me? Thank you.
Well, I think HUD has a high standard, and I'm going with HUD because of financing reasons, and they have a, what is the rating, Peter, 75? You're on mute.
That's correct.
Which is a relatively high rating, right?
Yes.
So we're not necessarily trying to do anything more affordable. My thought process was, sorry, I'm getting some feedback there, we're better, was to do it to conform to a future HUD financing deal, which these standards are high and set by the federal government. It wasn't to try to do something more affordable, but more to comply to their requirements. And I hope that helps.
So you're gonna go for more sustainable than more affordable? Is that what you're saying?
It's not about affordability. I try to articulate myself once more. HUD has federal requirements that are already high, and we only chose to use HUD's requirements because they're already a standard set by the federal government. It's nothing to do with affordability.
Is there someone can explain this a little better for me? I'm sorry if
Mike Davenport, is there any way you could explain this?
Oh, I think as the applicant said, is that they're proposing this alternative standard, which is the type of standards that generally the federal government follows. I believe what he's saying is that as part of the, I'm guessing, the financing of his project, these are part of the standards he's meeting in order to be able to participate in that program that would assist this project.
That's the opportunity zone?
Yes,
No.
the opportunity zone, well, the opportunity zone was something that was created in the current, under the current president that
Yeah, I
replaced,
know the.
replaced
Sorry,
earlier
go ahead.
zones. Every president seems to have a different zone.
So the opportunity zone is totally separate. There's a housing urban development HUD that provides financing for multifamily. It is totally separate from the opportunity zone. And they have certain standards you have to meet in order to qualify for this financing. And that's why we chose those standards. Opportunity zone.
Right, and just to be clear to the commission's question, even though it's from HUD, that they're used to like affordable housing being associated with HUD. It's more just a general financing that you're trying to obtain that has these different standards. I'm just trying to make sure our commission's questions are
Correct.
are
HUD does all kinds of multifamily, and they also do affordable housing.
Okay.
Cindy, I went back to the survey results, and you are correct that the survey results of both the city council members and the planning commission members is most people favored new affordable development that was 3 to 6 units. What was interesting about the survey results is very few people favored duplexes. So they were looking at attached units.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And if I may add a developer's point of view, it's not very cost effective to build duplexes. I don't think anybody's going to come in there and do that. They're just going to keep the mobile home park.
Yeah. And I think if I can add very quickly into there, you know.
Who's speaking?
This is Pete Pappas, the architect.
Okay, thank you.
And see if I can say this clearly. We're kind of we've used this word affordable a couple of different times. And we're not doing what is called affordable housing with respect to subsidies and such. But I think the term more affordable is, and I think I might have been Cindy or Kate who mentioned it. You know, if you do bring in single family homes and duplexes, the density does go down, but the cost to the occupants of those buildings goes way, way up. You're not going to rent a single family home in the $1,500 a month range, nor a duplex in the $1,500 range. So therefore, you're then building what we would call higher end housing, which then you know, people are paying in the $2,000 to $3,000 range to rent those buildings and such. So you're not really providing what Virgil was calling workforce housing, something that is more affordable from the point of view of being able to occupy it. And that is where, you know, coming up with 69 units versus if you did single family homes, you may end up being less than 20 units in there. So you're not really providing the housing stock that is necessary for people who are in the range of the, you know, $800 to $1,600 rental market. And I think that's where that affordable word needs to come in, as it is more affordable for that.
But doing it that way, we would meet the zoning that's in effect right now, which is what we need to look at is, do we want that density of housing in a residential area? I mean, that's the bottom line, is between the R2 and the R3.
So
it's something for the community also. It's just not about the affordability.
True, and I forgot to add in one comment, if I may. I did meet with the neighbor to the east who owns that whole strip, and we share the easement. I wish I would have encouraged her to come, but she was very supportive of this.
Cindy, I wanted to ask a question. I'm not sure if it was Pete or Virgil. Who was the one that said that 57 feet is allowed in R2 or R3?
Well, first Mike said it, and then I repeated it.
But that is not true, actually.
Mike, please confirm.
Yeah, if you could clarify, because unless there's an overlay, the maximum height is 35 feet, other than the RN, which is 45 feet.
Maybe they envisioned
What-
57
the
feet,
50
doing something like that.
The 57 feet comes from the comprehensive plan. When the city was doing the comprehensive plan, it looked at a number of locations for multifamily housing, one of which included this property. And it listed on the plan that a possibility, it didn't say that's what was going to occur, but it said it was possible that a building under the plan could go up to 4.5 stories or 57 feet. That's what's listed in the plan.
Right, and the comp plan isn't what the ordinance state. It's a vision of what the city's envisioning.
So even in R3, that wouldn't be allowed at this point in time.
Under the existing zoning, the maximum allowable height is the 35 feet. This project meets the city's standard of 35 feet, the way it's measured according to the definition of building height in the code.
Yeah.
One of the questions that I was asked earlier was regarding the density or the zoning district for the property. In the comprehensive plan, there is a map called land use and character, which in some other communities is referred to as a future land use map. And that map, what it shows is that this property, the property to the east, and a portion of the property to, I'm sorry, the property to the west, and part of the property to the east as being in a going to being multifamily, which under current zoning is only allowed in the R3 zone district of the zone districts. You can't do multifamily in the R2 or R1 zone district. So that's one place where that shows up. There is a portion of the adjacent property to the east which shows that location going to mixed use.
Okay.
I did have
So
a
getting
question.
back,
I did have a
Go ahead.
question. I'm not even sure who can answer this. So I think that Virgil said his project is on just over 2 acres. Can somebody remind me what Riverbend? Chuck, you probably know best. What was the acreage on Riverbend
I think it was less than 1, wasn't it?
on for both of those parcels?
Well, not counting the Shepherd Miller parcel, I'm not sure.
Not
But-
counting the back parcel?
Just Trailer Villa. Yeah, just Trailer Villa was less than an acre.
Okay,
I'll try and look that up. I think I have those files.
I know the answer to the question. It's 42,000 square feet.
42,000. So
Which
this
is
one
just-
is 57.
No, it's 100,000 square feet. The number in my staff report was wrong.
Okay, all right.
43,560 is 1 acre. So the Riverbend site is just slightly under 1 acre in size, based on the number Jonathan gave.
Right.
Right.
so regarding the traffic part,
Okay, who's ever
My
speak isn't clear, and could you state who's speaking, please?
this is
Okay, Don, you're breaking up, or are you guys hearing them better?
No.
Turn off your video, Don, and they'll be able to hear you.
Okay. There we
You there,
better?
Don? Yep, we can hear you.
Yep. So, okay, anyway, for the previous 3 years, have driven down Colorado Boulevard and made a right turn onto Minor, delivering parts. The turn from Minor onto Colorado has always been very problematic. You have to get to the towing service. And next to that, you have the Carl's Jr. Then you have the McDonald's. Across the street is the gas station. Then you have the dispensary. You have Starbucks, and so on. I can't see how another 69 units with probably 1 or 2 people per unit and more cars are going to be able to negotiate all this turning from one street to the other. I mean, it just seems like there's just going to be too much cars for too little road. So, yeah, that's all I got to say for now. But to me, it's like a pretty overly dense situation.
Mike, did you want to comment on that at all from the traffic study?
Yes, I could mention several things regarding that. It was the traffic study was reviewed by the city engineer, but who's consulting engineer is obviously not here. So I'll comment based on my knowledge of this. One thing to keep in mind is of the 69 units, when you take out the net effect of the existing mobile home park, it's the equivalent of an increase of 46 units beyond the number of units that are there today. But the factor to take into account is that each mobile home, according to the standards used by the Institute of Traffic Engineers, is that a mobile home, like a single family home, will create more traffic per home than an apartment unit in a multifamily building. And so those were a couple of reasons why, although yes, this is a significant increase in the number of units, the amount of traffic, there need to be the adjustments of the fact that there already are 22 units there, and these new units will create not as many trips per unit. It still is an increase, but not as big an increase if you think of it as these 69 units. It's a net increase of 40.
Okay.
And do I have
Another
the ability to
question for Mike.
address that a little bit?
Hang on a minute. Mike, I had another question on the stuff from JVA, the letter. All those things, those 10 items were addressed?
Yes, let me get to that. Yes, I believe they were all addressed in the, yeah, let me get to that letter.
And then the stuff that was sent out to the other places, I didn't see anything in here, or maybe I missed it. I read through it so many times from the fire authority on the access in and out.
I'll have to check. I don't remember if there was a written comment back from the fire district, but I will check that for you.
Yeah, I don't believe that some of the stuff has been addressed.
I feel like this is kind of premature, guys. I mean, we're going in a regular meeting, what we should be doing in a work session where we devote the entire evening to this. And unfortunately, I mean, we're just none of the answers are really, it's not a complete package, is what I'm going to say. I haven't had time to vet this project through any other project that Virgil has taken on. I can't go back and figure out, you know, what exactly the neighbors are thinking, because we don't have the same kind of access for those people that might be affected by this particular project. Number one, many people in our town don't have internet service, and where they get internet service is cut off to them right now. So I really feel like that we're doing a disservice to many people that don't have a voice tonight by continuing with this conversation, where I think we should actually table it, make it a work session, you know, conversation for the future.
Okay. Let me move forward with.
Yeah, sorry, I thought I was muted, not muted.
Okay.
So in certain circumstances, work sessions are okay before an application is even submitted. They're not okay once an application is submitted. So I want to be careful because it's a quasi judicial hearing. I want to make sure that everyone has their rights protected. If we have questions, we can feel free to ask. I mean, this hearing is merging a rezone, a final development plan, which includes design standards and other specifics. If there are specific questions, you know, let's keep trying to ask them. And then after that, when we make our determination, you know, we're going to base it on criteria for the, you know, for the code. We start with the rezone and look at the criteria in section 21-108. So I just want to clarify that. But if there, you know, are questions that you still have, make sure you ask the applicant and the city planner. And then after all the questions are done, we will give opportunity for the applicant to respond to anything he wants to, give a closing statement, as well as Mike before we deliberate.
Right. Nina, so if it got to, because the questions, I mean, to review this, and there is more questions, so can this be tabled?
What if there's a reason, if there's questions that we feel the applicant is not cannot answer and he needs more time, or the planner needs more time, but if just to table it, let's see if those questions could be answered.
Okay. So some of my questions were the fire authority. I don't see that. And then
well, hold on, let the question be answered. Let's feel like we have our questions being answered, right?
Right.
So the fire
Mike,
department,
did you
Yes,
did you find it?
Yes, I didn't find a letter from the fire district, a letter that came back. I also need to mention, there's a difference between tabling an item and continuing an item. Continuing an item means you're going to bring it back at another meeting.
Yep.
Tabling is somewhat equivalent to killing an application.
Yeah, and actually that's what I meant, Mike.
Continuing it. Yeah, I think that's what we meant. Okay, so right now.
we can't just kill an application. We have to give the opportunity to vote on it. The applicant could maybe take away, rescind their application, start over again. But if we're going to continue, to Mike's point, that means that it's still ongoing, so there would be no work session. So but let's see. So I understand what I'm trying to get to where you're trying to get to, Cindy. If you feel that there are questions that are not being asked that need further information, then yes, of course, to continue. But so let's start with a fire question. Do you feel like it was answered? Is there a way to clarify that?
My answer was I went through the files and I did not see a letter from the fire department that was sent back when the referral letter was sent out to very different parties, including the fire district. I did not find a response letter from the fire district.
We usually follow up when we haven't heard from certain parties.
You know, I don't know, because most of the referral comments that we got back were from the time that Alan was here. Subsequently, we were, after Alan left, I was sending out, whenever we got changes to the plans, I would send them out. But the nature of that is that if people have seen the application before, if they didn't have a concern initially, often they're not going to send you another letter. The one major exception is Excel Energy will send you a letter every time.
Well, I know Kayla Gabion has always sent a letter when it comes to anything about the fire authority. So yes, I would expect that he would have had a response.
Yeah. That's true. And then I guess I had some other questions on the water demand and stuff like that. So with a build like this, how many water taps does the city require? How is that done? The property for each building?
It's a question that it would be better for the engineer or engineer or public works director, but the general practice in most communities is that there is one tap per building.
Okay.
Family homes, each building gets a tap. I think if you have duplexes, that is one case where there are two taps into a building. If you have multifamily, I think most communities now say there is one tap per building. There may be additional taps that are not counted as taps for any fire hydrant. That's kind of the common practice in terms of how communities determine the number of taps they require. Separate taps for fire, and then the tap for the building.
Okay. I guess where I'm going with that is I don't see any of that addressed in this also, where it's been reviewed by the city, and then back to the fire authority talking about the fire repressant and stuff like that. So if that requires another tap.
That information.
And wouldn't that be part of, you'd have to have that information for the final development plan?
So if I may interject here, when I first started this project, I did call Public Works in the water department about this very question. We do have two 6-inch taps existing. And she said that it had enough water units to do what we want to do. And if we need to get some kind of conditional approval to get that from them, I assure you we can.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's not in this packet. So, I mean, as we're going along and asking these questions, I think we're finding some of this stuff missing.
Was that for Public Works, Cindy? So do you feel like we should have heard from Public Works for the FDP?
I think if we're moving towards the final development plan, I would think part of that would be inclusive in here. We're asking these questions and we're not getting the answers.
Right.
I know, having been with the city stuff, that when they go through the billing process and it's divided out and stuff, but my questions are how many taps. My guess is one per building. I've heard the term one tap per slab. Does that mean the building?
I haven't heard that term before, but that might mean one per building, but I have not heard the term before.
Right. Okay. So, okay. I guess we're at the point, does anybody have any other questions before we go into deliberation? Mike, do you have anything to add?
Well, one more thing I can add regarding the water is that the final development plan does include the proposed layout of the utilities that are serving the project. And I think we also got from the applicant a list of what is the water demand and what is the sewer demand for the project. And that information, I believe, again, was sent to the city's engineer. I'll check on that, but I believe that was forwarded to them.
Yeah, I see it in here. I guess having the answers of whether it was acceptable or not.
I think from looking at the engineering comments, from the letters going back to when Alan was on staff, is that I think if there had been inadequate water, I think the engineering consultant would have raised that. That still doesn't mean you have that information, but I remember ever coming across the city's engineer saying there's not enough water to serve this project or to meet the fire flow requirements for fire protection. So I don't have that information, but it's the information I believe was sent to the city's engineer, and he did not return with a comment again whether he thought that the water was inadequate to serve the project.
So Mike, do you think it would be helpful, to Cindy's point, that to get some of these questions answered to continue the hearing for these purposes?
I think it would be helpful. Let me mention something about the schedule, is that public notice has been done for this meeting tonight and for the second reading of City Council, which occurs in late January. There would still be at least one regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting that would occur before the City Council hearing at the second reading. So from the standpoint of there is that time to be able to have another meeting of Planning Commission, an additional notice is not required because this meeting serves as the notice for that meeting.
Yeah, we know.
The project could stay on in other words, we would not need to do renoticing at this point because you'd be able to have a meeting in January on this application and still not change the date of the City Council's the City Council hearing.
Okay, so other than that, do you have anything else to add? And we can let the applicant, if he's got anything else he wants to add or respond to any of the statements or questions. Mike, did you have anything else?
No, I've been taking notes of the comments tonight in terms of what your questions are.
Okay, Virgil, did you?
What I can do is at this time, I will be sending the notice out again and I will follow up with a phone call.
Okay, well, I think we have to move to where, I mean, once we are done with the questions, it'll have to go to the commission. And there might be a motion that wants to move forward on something. So let's wait till we get to that point. Virgil, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No, thank you for your time. If we do continue this, as I understand it, I want you to know I'm an open book, open phone. I'd love to come meet with you to work out some of these things. Keep in mind.
Just to clarify, we're in a quasi judicial hearing, so all the questions have to be done in the context of a hearing. So please do not contact the commissioners.
Well, you talked about having a work meeting or whatever you're talking about.
No, not a work meeting, a hearing. This is a public hearing. This is to protect you as an applicant, that you can, questions are for a public hearing on the record in public once an application is filed. So just to clarify, don't make individual phone calls. Any questions will be here. If there's things that.
Yeah, I thought we were possibly going to continue this, and you guys talked about you never had an opportunity to have a meeting for all of us try to work on this. And I was just putting it out there that.
No. So there can't be once an application is filed, there can't be a work session. And the reason is mostly to protect you as the property owner, that everything happens in the context of a public hearing.
I'm also talking about my rights then, because I'm being told I followed the rules. and nobody ever.
Okay, can we
I-
stop for a second? I think what she's just saying is your comments of saying if one of us want to pick up the phone and call you and have a conversation, because of this process, no, we're not allowed to do that, and you're not allowed to do that. So she's just trying to point out to you that,
Okay, I'm not trying to
no,
break
let's
the
not
rules
do
either.
that.
I'm
We
just
have to
trying
have
be
these
cooperative.
questions in the public hearing.
Okay.
Did you have a closing statement or something, Virgil,
Virgil?
you'd like to make?
Okay, go ahead, Peter.
Virgil,
Can I just clarify? Virgil, and everyone, we went through this with a previous application.
Who's
The
speaking?
bottom line is, if you have an application in process, there are no work sessions. This happens.
Yeah, I said, okay. I thought I made it
Okay,
clear, yeah.
but I don't think people are hearing this. There are no work sessions. If you want to have a work session, then the way in which you accomplish that, as one relatively recent applicant did, that applicant who was proposing many units decided that their company would withdraw their application in order for both the planning commission and the city council to provide that applicant with information at a work session. So you do have the option of having a work session. It requires you to withdraw your application. And that has been, per the city attorney's office, the way in which it rocks and rolls.
Okay, do we have any other comments? If
Yes.
not,
Yes.
I'm going to close the meeting.
Yes,
Who's
this is
saying yes?
Pete Pappas,
Okay.
with the applicant. I have been going through the application and the packet that was sent out by the planning staff. And I'm trying to find, this was sent out and most of this information has been available to the planning commission. We do have, and then this may be out of order, we do have water demand estimate included in the packet, which indicates that we have adequate water. We do have it on a utility plan, which shows the fire
So that's
hydrants.
not out of order. That's what they're considering. If you could point to the page in the packet, then they can look at it. That's what we're
Okay.
here to do.
All right, well, so let's go here. I'm not quite sure what page, but we'll, and I don't know, I'm scrolling down through. So after the staff report, there is a document which indicates compliance with the comprehensive plan and such. Then we scroll down to the architectural plans or the final development plan and such. There is in the final development plan package, there is a utility plan, which is about it's called sheet SP4. It's a 1, 2, 3. It's the fourth sheet of the large architectural documents, which does show the fire hydrants, does show the utilities coming off of the main in East Minor Street and making a loop. So technically, you would call it two taps. There is, off of that main line that loops through, there's a water tap that goes to each of the apartment buildings. So technically, there are 4 private taps off of that main line that comes through. So we provided that. As you go beyond that, you do get to the, I'm trying
Is everyone
to find-
following on the pages, or unless you want to share the screen? Is everyone following?
Yes, I think we're following. I think that the thing is we have the questions on it. So yes, I think we've seen all this and we've read through it. Like I said, I don't see the recommendation from the fire authority, and that's something that we usually always have. Whether it got missed or not, I mean, that's just the reason I'm asking one of the questions.
Right. So if we get to a point where you feel that you guys don't have the proper information, let's make
Right.
a list for staff for the applicant and continue it. So that is
Well,
an option.
So I guess my question would be, as a continuance, are you asking us to provide more information, or is it staff that would find this information as a submittal? Because we have, as Mike indicated and went through the criteria for approval, you know, we have met the criteria for approval for both the rezone and the
I'm not sure if that's what Mike said, and Mike wants to clarify. Let's not put words into the staff's mouth, but I think the planning commission is giving everyone an opportunity for the fair hearing to consider on all evidence. They'll make a list and we'll see. I think it sounds like most of it is from the city, Public Works, Fire. But if I look through, if you look through the staff report, and Mike can correct me, I don't think there's either, I don't think there's a recommendation or a statement either way that all the criteria are met.
Well, actually, if you go through the criteria, he's indicated the criteria and address each item in criteria.
Well, that's the planning commission to determine, but if they're saying that they can't make a decision based on information that typically is provided, it's up to them. If they don't have all the information, and it sounds like it wouldn't prejudice you in any way because the second reading would still occur at the end of January.
May I ask, are you an attorney?
Yes.
Yeah, she's the city attorney.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. I didn't know. I didn't get all the introductions.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The way you're talking now, I understand.
Okay. Yeah, that's why I'm here to preserve the fairness of the process.
Okay, so let's go back to if there's any more to add from Mike. Mike, if you've got nothing else to add, if there's something in closing that Virgil wanted to add, now's the time to do it before we close the public hearing.
I would like to add a little bit. I did think we followed the rules and submitted everything, and I did read the letter from Mike, which did make some recommendations and said we met the criteria. Never really been in a situation like this where I feel we were very unprepared, but we had a lot of time. I can't really get a feel from you guys whether you're kicking it down the road because you don't support it or if you want more information. And I don't know if it's best to continue it or withdraw. And I don't even know if we can have that discussion right now with Ms. Williams here.
Okay, with those comments, I'm going to close the public hearing. For the record, it's 7:31 p.m. And now we'll go to the commissioners and either a motion, and the motion is either to approve or disapprove the zoning from R2 to R3. And it sounds like the other option is a motion to continue the hearing. And would we have a date right now or can just make the motion to continue the hearing?
We would say a specific date, but before if we're going to go that route and first deliberate, talk amongst yourselves, we want to make sure that there's a list of what we want to see from the applicant and what we want to see from the city. And I'll help you with the motion language because yes, when we continue to Mike Davenport's point, when we continue something, we need to do it a certain way and say a certain date.
A different way.
Yeah, but you guys have the opportunity to deliberate now as a commission, considering all the evidence, all the factors in the code. You still can ask questions if they come up, or you can just see how everyone feels. And if they are going a certain way, make sure, like I said before, you make the motion to continue, then make sure there's a clear list so everyone knows. So then we come back with all the information and it will be added to the record.
Okay, discussion.
I just wanted to mention, this is Ursula. What Candy mentioned today is about the shading. Yes, I agree. We have mentioned a couple times in the last conversations or applications that we've had. I think it's important to put a flag on that for us to revise our zoning. I personally don't feel like the R3 is the right option for that area. That street is too narrow to be able to handle heights of 45 feet that zoning allows. So I feel like that is important to note. And I'm gonna leave it there.
Any other discussion?
I would have to agree with Uchi on that one. I don't think there was enough, there's enough capacity for the roads. So unless they could come up with a better, I don't know, better entrance and egress plan, I don't know if we should go for it.
Okay. Any other discussion? If there's no more discussion, I'll entertain a motion as to what direction the commission wants to go.
I'm going to make a motion to decline the rezoning from R2 to R3.
Okay, do I have a second?
I will second it.
Who was
This
the
is-
second?
Chuck.
Chuck was? Okay, so we have a motion.
Can I just jump in? The motion is to recommend to the city council that they do not approve. However, I just want to caution if we.
I didn't say that right.
No, it's okay. That's on here. But I just want to caution that that's based on the criteria in the code, and that not that if you, like we said, if you did need more information, and we just stated that we needed more information to make a rational decision, that continuing is not the right choice.
Well, I'm actually kind of making it based on the area that they're asking for rezoning, Nina. I'm not making it based on the fact that they don't have, you know, the fire authority's letter or anything else that, or maybe the traffic study. But I do agree that the traffic study, the shadowing, the fact that it's going to be the tallest entity in that whole entire area that is all residential, really, even despite the fact that the C2 is there, the C2 is still one story. So I'm making my determination not on anything that they've done or not done, but based on just where that project is going.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, and I think that the things that you're asking for are more FTP, FTP stuff. I just was trying to clarify for the record.
Okay, so the motion is to.
Yeah.
Nina, are the statements that Kate just made?
Wait, excuse me, who's speaking right
Oh, this
now?
is Mike Davenport.
Mike Davenport.
Okay, right now, we've got a motion on the table and the discussion
Well-
is for the commissioners.
I think I think in this situation, we was trying to clarify something because Cindy, if you, Chairman, if you don't mind, Chairwoman, if you don't mind.
Okay, nope, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that we were following the right steps as far as with the motion on the floor.
Nina, are you satisfied that the statements that Kate made after her motion, are those sufficient findings? Because as I mentioned, it's usually important to have findings stated on which the motion is based.
I would like to say something if we can get out of if we could withdraw the motion, because it's Mike, I have further questions for you to that point that I tried to ask before. But that's up to the person who made the motion. But
to make this easier, I'll withdraw my motion for discussion.
Thank you, Kate. And Chairman Olson, if you can I ask Mike some questions while you guys deliberate?
Yes.
So, Mike, I just want to be clear because you had, it was stated that you feel that these factors lend themselves to approving rezoning. Can you go through your criteria again to help the Planning Commission? Because I don't read that that's what your staff report says. So maybe, and as they're basing their findings on these criteria, they could again hear your expertise in your staff report.
Okay, if that's what the board wants.
Okay.
I think that we should continue it, and hopefully when it's re-meeting, we'll have more public input. I mean, I was kind of hoping to have a lot more yes and no's when people show up, and we already had one, really. Did you hear me
Okay,
okay?
I thought Mike was going to add something. Is he not?
No, I'm getting to the point in the, if the board would like me to re-go through the criteria, I will do that if that's the board's request.
Yes, go for it.
Okay. Okay, I'll try and make this more concise. Is the zoning in conformity with the comprehensive plan? Yes, what's called the land use and character map, which is like a future land use map, it shows this property as being multifamily. And so it's consistent with the criterion A. Criterion B, have there been substantial material changes in the character of the neighborhood? In staff's view, there haven't been substantial changes to the material changes to the character of the neighborhood. C, just a moment, I'm having a problem with spacing. Okay, whether the proposed rezoning will tend to preserve and promote property values in the neighborhood. It's staff's belief that the proposed change would promote property values in the neighborhood. D, whether the development of the property in accordance with the proposed rezoning will be in harmony and compatible with surrounding land uses and present development in the area. The proposed development would allow higher density housing, more units, taller buildings compared to the existing neighborhood. According to the future plan, is that the intent is that this area, not just this property, but adjacent properties are recommended in that land use and character map to go to R3, or to go to multifamily housing, which is only allowed in the R3. Whether the property can be reasonably used and developed as presently zoned. It is an existing mobile home park. It could continue as a mobile home park. In other words, that use is still allowed. It also, in the R2 zone, allows for single family and for duplexes, even if the property is not rezoned. Criterion F, whether the proposed rezoning will affect traffic congestion in the area. Based on a review of the traffic study submitted by the applicant, the conclusions were that this would not have a significant impact based on the numbers involved. G, whether the proposed rezoning will promote the public welfare. The proposed rezoning will provide a substantial increase in the number of market rate dwellings on this property and for the city as a whole. Criterion H, whether the property zoned when its current zoning was established. The R2 zoning is appropriate for the existing uses and densities. Existing R2 zoning is appropriate for the existing uses and density. I, whether denial of proposed rezoning would preclude any reasonable economic use of the property. As I previously stated, this still allows the mobile home park to continue under the existing zoning, as well as single family and duplexes are allowed under the existing zoning. J, whether any other zoning classification would afford any reasonable use of property. Other than the existing zoning, there are significant challenges that would exist using this for either a commercial zone such as retail, or an industrial zone because of the capacity and the size of the. K, whether denial of the proposed rezoning would impose an undue hardship on the owner. As I noted, the applicant would be able to speak more to that, but from the information staff has is that we know of this applicant will bear the time and cost that he has spent so far on this application. Criterion L, whether the proposed rezoning will promote or disturb stability in the zoning of the neighborhood. As I stated before, the R3 is introducing a greater number of dwelling units, taller buildings, and a higher density into this particular location compared to the adjacent property, to the adjacent properties to the west, to the east, and to the homes across Minor Street. However, the future land use map, which is called land use and character, basically identifies this area as generally going to multifamily. Both this property, the property to the west, and on the east side, a portion of the property on the east, with the remainder on the east side of the property being identified as mixed use. I think that's the last criterion.
So then just as you deliberate, those are listed criteria that you can review. And if you are, making a motion on the merits, it's based on findings that those criteria are not met. So there's many listed that just explain the objective factors that you look to as you determine this application. And it's a recommendation to City Council.
I'm going to, Cindy.
Okay, so let's go back to if one of the commissioners want to make a motion.
I'm gonna make the motion to decline the rezoning from R2 to R3 based on the height of the building, of the proposed building, because that area, I do not believe it supports it.
And do you mean recommend denial?
Oh, yes, I'm so sorry. Recommend denial.
I
was council. I'm an old bossy council person.
Kate, I think we could be more clear if we say that it does not match the character of the neighborhood.
That's fine.
So
I'll amend it to what Uchi has remarked.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah. To deny the recommended change.
Okay, discussion. No further comments. Roll call.
Cindy Olsen,
Can you repeat the motion?
me,
Yes, please.
Kate moves to recommend
Denial.
Okay.
of these rezoning from R2 to R3 based on the conformity of the neighborhood.
It doesn't conform to the characteristics of the neighborhood.
Okay. And then roll call, yes.
Kate Collier,
Yes.
Don Reimer,
Yes.
Chuck Howard,
Yes.
Ursula Kruzaliki.
Yes.
Okay, the motion carries. Okay, thank you to all those that were here participating. We'll close the meeting, the work session, or the commissioners meeting. Do you need the time? Let's see.
Well, can I just add something? Sorry. We just because of that motion, it renders the other two motions moot. So I just want to state that for the record.
Right.
And the application is still scheduled for City Council next month.
Yes.
Okay, with that, we'll close the Planning Commission meeting, and it's 7:48. And now we'll adjourn to a work session. Okay, so let's go into that right away. And the work session is on the Mighty Argo Lumina presentation. Who's going to do the presentation? Who's on here? Travis, Mary Jane?
Andy or Barb, are you teeing it up?
So
Yeah,
I will.
We'll be very
Travis
quick
is
and
back.
honor your time as you've been. Yes,
Okay,
Travis is back.
Who's going to do the presentation?
So I can do a quick
We're
presentation.
tag
and then
teaming, but it'll be very quick.
and then I'll turn it over to the Argo team. So there are two work session items in front of you related to the Argo. The first, and part of the reason we're bringing this to you is that the Idaho Springs Municipal Code allows what is called an administrative review of a final development plan. So it doesn't go to Planning Commission, nor does it go to City Council if it's less than 50% of what is existing. Just a second, I'm gonna get. So in the, I can't get my screen up, but so basically these two items will not be heard by either the Planning Commission or City Council, but we felt that it was really important for you to sort of weigh in unofficially on how you felt about this. So the two items that Brian and company will be presenting, one is this concept of the Lumina journey, and then the second item is the need for a caretaker unit at the top of the gondola.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Travis or Brian, who's going to take it, but it's yours.
Mary Jane's going to lead off tonight, and then Travis will present the Lumina deck, and I will conclude.
Perfect.
Before we start,
Right.
Jonathan, would you be putting that up, or would I be sharing my screen just so I'm ready?
We ready? Travis, why don't you just share your screen?
Okay.
And I'll just tee it up. I bet you guys are tired of seeing us after all these many times in front of Planning Commission, but we have something really exciting to talk to you about tonight that we never saw coming when we thought up the Mighty Argo cable car. And it's so exciting for the city of Idaho Springs. It goes so well along with our outdoor recreation and heritage values and community values that when this came to us through Brian's contacts, we researched it and just said, oh my gosh, this is the perfect fit for the Mighty Argo. This is something that's passionate about the city of Idaho Springs, passionate about our history, and brings in outdoor recreation and the interpretation that we want to do at the top of the gondola. It also provides the city and our citizens another hiking trail during the day, free to all the residents, and at night turns into this enchanted night walk that interprets and really inspires you with the history of the gold mining in Idaho Springs. There are installations throughout the world. This is a Montreal company. This would be the first installation in the United States. We've been working with them for several months, and don't get panicked because it wouldn't happen in 2021. It'll happen in 2022. But I'm so happy these people are embracing our local culture and just fell passionately in love with the process. Again, the Mighty Argo mill itself is the centerpiece of this entire project. I want to reassure you that this is not a Disney-esque kind of thing, but when you walk into the enchanted night walk of Lumina, you will be surrounded by all things history in Idaho Springs. And one thing that you will probably ask about, because we're going to be bringing more people to the site, what's going to happen is these people will be coming to the site in the evening where we don't have visitation. So the gondola will be extended through the evening hours and we don't need any more parking therefore. So it's more gondola revenues for the city and an amazing capstone for the city of Idaho Springs to capture this from Lumina in Montreal. So Travis, do you want to go for it?
Yes, please. Thanks, Mary Jane.
And
We'll keep
we've
this.
all got to, Yeah, we'll keep it short. You guys have had a long meeting, but we have so many things
Yeah.
to tell you, but this is just a teaser.
Thanks, Mary Jane. Can everyone see the screen here?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Wonderful. So Mary Jane did a pretty thorough job of explaining what I was going to explain, but she did it really well. So as she mentioned, you know, this was fairly serendipitous that Brian was in contact with this group. It really is a world-class outfit. They do immersive light-based art installations all over the world. And we always knew that there was some great opportunities for that type of immersive experience. And the way that this group, Lumina, Moment Factory actually is the company. You can Google them. They have a great website that show a lot of their work. But Lumina is a specific type of programming that they do. And it's an evening and nighttime walk where they take a site and they research the history and the heritage of the site, and then they interpret and celebrate that heritage through these night walks. Now, they're not, as Mary Jane said, anything resembling Disneyland, to be sure, and they're not pedantic. They're interpretive, and they let you kind of find your own story and meaning. So we're excited to share this. And as Barb mentioned, this was written into the plan development as an allowed use. And we're really seeing it as an opportunity to not only bring this type of programming to the site, but to really expand the daytime facilities and amenities up there. So this will allow us to build additional trails, including actually going underground. So these amenities will be open for visitors of the Mighty Agua cable car during the day, and then at night it'll transition into this experience. So this is a brief presentation. Again, we're happy to go into more detail as we get into more detail with them. But they're a really world-class, cutting-edge outfit. So the images that you see here are not literal examples of what they're planning on proposing for this site. They're just tastes of some of the different types of technologies and experiences and spaces that they can actually create for people to walk through.
Travis,
Yes.
this is Kate. I just have a question for you and
Hey,
Mary
Kate.
Jane. Is it similar to like the night walk at the botanical gardens or the zoo?
Well-
Obviously different subject matter, but
Yeah, I think, that's a fairly close local comparison, but I think it goes a few layers deeper than that into the actual context in which it's in. So whereas, the Botanic Gardens is really, they hire, there are a couple installations, but they really hire people to light up their existing trees with Christmas lights. But it's that kind of festive, magical nighttime experience. So
that's great because that's super popular and I think people will totally dig it. So with the history,
I think they will too. I know I'm excited about this. And just seeing sort of the direction they're taking with this, they've really immersed themselves into the history of the gold rush and the history of the prospectors and the spirit that kind of built the town. A lot of the same types of ideas that we're building and have been talking with you guys about with the Mighty Argo cable car as well. So it's just celebrating that natural beauty of the surroundings and then really embracing and interpreting the local culture, which we have so much of a rich well to draw from. So just a few technical specs. Typically it's, a 45 to 60 minute walk around the path. The path contains several nodes, so several sort of gathering places and experiences, and each node is populated with different types of light and some sound and some effects, projections, things like that tell the story as people walk through it. and they really are, as I've already mentioned, really are just absorbing like sponges the history, and they're really drawing from that. So I'll just finish with this. It's a little dark, I'm sure. I'm gonna try to zoom in here if we can. This is very preliminary, so we're still working on the alignment. So this isn't a literal site plan by any means, but right by number 1, you see that archway bridge. Directly below that is where the gondola, the cable car terminal is. So that'll kind of place you where this experience would be. So the Virginia Canyon Mountain Park hiking and biking trails are all happening to the south. And this is really occupying the north, east and west side of the ridge that the Upper Landing or Miners Point, as it's now called, is going to be occupying. So it'll take you through a series of like I said, nodes with different types of experiences. And you know, when you walk through here, you'll sort of build upon the progression that the prospectors went through, that became miners, that became industry, that became community and culture, and finally back to the Upper Landing. So again, we're really excited about it. We look forward to, you know, continuing to have discussions with you as this thing progresses. One thing on this note that I do want to note is up top you see a green dashed line, and we're actually, you know, pretty seriously exploring creating an underground experience. So you can actually go into the mountain and into a cavern and then come out the other side and continue your journey. So really giving that sense of you know, the subterranean environment that these prospectors and miners you know, spent their days in. I think will be a really strong experience, not only for Lumina, but for people who come during the day and just are walking around and you know, allowing the setting and the interpretation to really soak in. Also wanted to talk about really what we're dealing with from a terrain perspective. So we're going to maintain as much, you know, as broad of an audience as possible, as accessible as possible. But we also have to go into it realizing that it's a very steep mountainous environment. So this really is a rugged adventure trail. So it's going to take some, you know, you're going to be out of breath at certain areas, and we're going to have to, you know, have some stairs in certain areas. But Lumina is really good at sort of creating that experience of adventure and exploration while maintaining a very safe and broadly accessible experience. So with that, I think Brian was going to continue discussing some of the details, but if there are any questions for me, I'm happy to ask them, and I'll go ahead and stop sharing my screen now, and I can see all your lovely faces. Oh, Brian's muted.
Okay, there we go. Sorry, my dog. Hi everybody, nice to see everyone tonight, and thanks for your time. I saw that Jonathan had earlier distributed a link to a video. That particular video was of the latest North American installation that Lumina constructed in Whistler. So I encourage the commissioners and everyone just to take a look at the video after our meeting. I think it really kind of does a great job of conveying the story and the emotion of what Lumina does and what they'll bring to Idaho Springs. I also want to point out, Travis mentioned that we have this mine tunnel experience that we're planning, and the screenshot behind Travis is actually from the Little Maddie mine, 3 miles up Chicago Creek out of Idaho Springs. And the gentleman on the right with the headlamp is Bill Kazel, and we have contracted with Bill. That's Travis. That's
and Travis, move your head so they can see me.
Travis always blocked Mary Jane. So
you always block me, Travis.
But some of you might know Bill Kazel. He's been a miner in Clear Creek County for many, many, many years. And he's an amazing guy, 80 years old. And so we brought him on as a consultant to help us evaluate the viability of doing the mine. In fact, we're going up the mine tunnel. In fact, we're going up tomorrow as we commence blasting operations for the Argo access road up there to evaluate the competency of the rock. He's already been up there once. He thinks that we have great competency in the rock. And so we're super excited about having this tunnel experience. You know, and I just want to touch on a few things. Benefits to the city. I mean, as Travis and Mary Jane mentioned, what Lumina, they're storytellers. That's what they do. And they gather people around the fireplace and tell stories of the rich history of the area in which these installations are developed. And in our case, you know, it's about the mining history of Idaho Springs, the heritage of Clear Creek County, and also celebrating the natural beauty of Virginia Canyon Mountain Park. The Lumina Trail will open up access to the public free of charge during the day to a portion of Virginia Canyon Mountain Park that never would have been accessible given the steep terrain, as Travis said. And that trail winds by existing historic mine workings, adits and shafts that have been there for 120 years. That has just been invisible to anybody, and we'll be able to take people by those mine workings, historic mine workings, and have interpretive panels. So beyond the adventure and the mining heritage, there's also an entertainment. There's also an educational component to this trail. As Mary Jane and Travis mentioned, this will extend the operating hours into the evening, and we're confident this will drive business downtown for dinner time, which is you know, not as strong as breakfast and lunchtime, I think, as you know. So there's an advantage for the local businesses here as people come off the mountain or looking to go dine downtown. And obviously, along with all this additional tax revenue, both from additional gondola sales, gondola ticket sales, F&B sales, Lumina ticket sales, and merchandise sales. So we're really excited about it. I mean, we're kind of pinching ourselves that we're able to land, you know, Lumina and have the potentially the first Lumina in the United States here in Idaho Springs. I think it's a testament to the project and to the town and to the history. And so we're just super excited about moving this forward. And at that, I think we'll take questions from the commissioners. Thank you very much.
Ryan, my only question is, how long have you been in Whistler?
Well, I'm not in Whistler. So the way I was introduced to Lumina, I was working on a project in the Pocono Mountains at the old historic Pocono Manor Resort there. And we had them under contract to do the first Lumina there. And then unfortunately, about a year ago, the manor burned to the ground. And so that project is on hold right now. And while I got deeper into the Lumina or into the Argo project, I thought that this is a perfect fit for them. So
I'm so sorry. So, but my question really is, and how long has Lumina been in Whistler?
They opened in the summer of 2018, Kate.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm very excited.
And actually, so it's a good question. They operate year round up there. So in the wintertime as well as the summer. I think initially we're going to look at just doing a seasonal spring to fall event, but we're certainly interested in studying the viability of a year round pathway as well.
But yeah, Whistler definitely has a year round environment, and I think we do too.
Yeah.
Good.
So I did want to add, I think it would be helpful, and I think, Brian, you can send them the link to just the advertisement or the sort of what the Lumina experience is at Whistler. I think what's really key to think about is if you look at when Whistler opens up their Lumina exhibit, it really is helping them with the shoulder seasons or the slow seasons before things sort of get up and going. So for example, in Whistler, and luckily I have a daughter that is just leaving Vancouver, so she knows this, they tend to open up the Lumina experience about now or just after Thanksgiving. And so that's a shoulder season that for Whistler is a little slow. So they're bringing people, you know, from Vancouver up to the mountains. And again, I think the other thing is that it's also a really fun thing for kids. And so I think it's one of the new things in Idaho Springs that will be really engaging for youngsters. And again, I think that's something that will fill in another market niche in Idaho Springs. So I just wanted to add that sort of from an overall economic health perspective.
What they quickly learned when they came here was They don't have to invent any stories, that the stories that Idaho Springs has to reveal, it just made them so passionate about doing the project here.
It'll be fun. Does anybody have any other questions for these guys? It's pretty cool. Okay. Any more to add, you guys? No?
Oh, we're good. Thanks, everybody.
Okay.
Appreciate your time.
Okay, thanks.
Have a good night.
Good night.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have one other item on the agenda for the work session. November activities for Community Development Department. Who's doing that? Hello, who's doing it?
I will do it.
Okay.
So this is something that I know it says draft, but it's not draft. I think one of the things that's really important now that you have, we're contract planners, nobody's in City Hall, at least we're not, is to just give you an understanding of the various projects that we're working on. Some of these projects you will see as planning commissioners, and some of the projects you will not see because they're going to be handled administratively. So I just wanted to let you know if this is helpful for you. And we have been doing this on a monthly basis, and sometimes it gets in your packets and sometimes it doesn't. So really the question is to all of you, do you have any questions on any of the projects we're working on right now, or what might come before you in the future?
Okay, I just have one comment, and it has to do with the project that was presented to us tonight. I don't think we're doing a good service to the applicants when they're, and I understand the process, they have to do a work session before they put the applicant in, but I think this was not handled in the best way. That yes, those guys should have met with the commission and the planner and do a work session long before they start putting this whole thing together. I think it would have eliminated a lot of this. And I think the planners and the applicant would have had a good sense that no, this isn't what we wanted in that area. And I think we need to be more aware of that when we get these projects coming in, that before they fill out the application, because from what I understand from Nina, we can't do the work session after they've applied. So we need to do these work sessions before. And I think it's just better for the applicants, especially with these big projects.
Yeah, and I agree, but I do have a question, because this was a project that started under Al. And this was
fine. It still
me,
could have been handled better and different.
But I just need I need to understand how it rolled out to me, because that would help us. So prior to us coming on board, there was a community meeting. And I went back and looked at the comments from
Wait, can I just jump in, guys? Can I just jump in? Can we have this conversation not on a public meeting when their application is going to the city council? Is that,
sure.
Sure.
I just think with these
or
projects,
maybe like after the city council meeting, like if we could just talk in generalities. I don't think we should go specifically into where Barbara's going. I understand what you were doing, but if we could do that not in a public meeting when they're still going to be heard by.
Right.
So Nina,
I agree.
I fully appreciate Cindy's comments.
Well, I'm looking at this list, and that's why I'm
So
saying.
we can do generalities, but let's not leave it breadcrumbs for. I mean, I don't want to say it. Let's talk generalities, please.
Okay. Right, and that's what I'm trying to do. Saying
I know. So I'm sorry. I'm just trying to.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying for
this question,
Barb, let me finish. What I'm saying is these projects that are coming forward, like you're showing us here, some of these things, that's why I'm saying this is when we have things, big projects like that, let's try to do the work sessions before. And that's the point I'm trying to make. Is that good, Nina?
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't muted. It's like certain things really, it depends. Like certain things, it's hard to have a work session if you know, before, because they haven't applied. And then if they have applied, it's kind of like that, a fine line with our rules for quasi-judicial. I think we could, let's all brainstorm. I understand where you're coming from. Let's all brainstorm and see what we could think of generally. I mean, in every circumstance, it doesn't make sense that we have to have the applicant do that. On the other hand, and also it gets me nervous to have, you know, every single time when you're trying to have the, you know, the context of the public hearing. So let's
I need a clarifying question just because we're sort of new. So what typically happens, so per your current code, you are supposed to have a community meeting, which you've been doing.
Okay, we're talking specifics, so let's go back to do your report.
Oh, Barb's
here
talking about
for-
the code, yeah. I'm sorry, so what applications need a community meeting? Thank you for clarifying that, Barb. Which applications need a community meeting?
So generally, I need to know, so on some of these bigger projects, the code requires that you have a community meeting. So on some of these projects that have been around for a while, you've had a community meeting. What typically happens after the community meeting? That's my question to the Planning Commission.
What do you mean, what happens after the community meeting?
So do you guys get the information from the community meeting? Do you listen to the community meeting comments?
I would say it depends on the individual. There's some of the community meetings that I've gone to, but to say that I've seen other people there, Adam, no. So no, do the comments get passed on to us? No.
Okay. So that's a great suggestion then. So if there are comments, part of it maybe, and this is just sort of a suggestion to run by you. So if per code, you know, the community development planners hold the community meeting as required, we need to make sure that you get a summary of what happened at that community meeting.
Yep, and maybe at that point, that's where the commission decides they want a work session or something. But,
Okay, great. Okay, and that's why I wanted to just sort of look at the broader project, because there was one project up on the Soda Creek Highlands project that is not an active project now, whereby Mr. O'Malley withdrew his application in order to have a work session.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's kind of what we're looking at and asking for. Wouldn't you agree? Do you guys agree with that? Yeah.
Absolutely. And in fact, what I was going to say, that any project that is large, I'm not speaking to any project individually, but any large project should have a work session and an assessment of what the community had said prior. I mean, I think we definitely have to have a discussion. I felt like, I won't go into that, but yes, I agree.
I also agree with that, is that even between a community meeting and a work session, the outcome of those two meetings can be very different. And other places I've worked, I've used the work session as a way of saying to the applicant, I'm not sure it's going to fly, but here's your chance to before you submit an application. And so I found that with the most difficult projects, that's the best way to handle it, is let them get direct feedback before they spend a lot of money on their application.
I think that's you're spot on. That's exactly what we're asking for. Yep.
So the other issue that has come up, and I've discussed this with Andy and Mike, is that the code, and now Nina, is the code allows you, so say I'm the developer, I can request a rezoning and at the same time apply for my final development plan. And in discussing this with Andy and Mike, I said, well, that's sort of stupid, because that means I'm drawing up my plans based on an assumption that I get my rezoning. And so I have stated to sort of the rest of staff, that's sort of silly, because why spend the money on the architectural plans if you don't know that you have the rezoning? I will tell you, based on great advice from Andy, and what Mike did, is we offer that to every applicant. We will let them know that it's probably smarter if we sort of recommend that you apply for your rezoning, and if you get it, then move on to the FDP. Just, you know, so you're making the decisions not concurrently, but in the proper order. And in the case you just heard tonight, and I think in a number of other cases, the applicants have chosen to do those concurrently. How do you guys feel about that?
Yes. Yeah, I think we're getting off track now. I think you were going to do the activities for the community development. Did you have any more of that you wanted to go over?
Well, I'm just saying in general that if you have any questions on what we've been doing, let us know. I will tell you that there is one project that is sort of ongoing, and that's 1800 Colorado Boulevard, which is an existing structure. That project will not come in front of you because they initially built, what is it, Mike, the West Wing, and now they're going to build the East Wing. It's less than 50%. So that will not come in front of you. But again, we think this list will help you just know what's going on in general.
On 1800 Colorado, they built all of the West Wing and a portion of the East Wing, and now they want to complete the rest of the East Wing. And the chapter 21 of the code says if it's less than 50% increase in floor area, it becomes an administrative review rather than a hearing.
Right, I see that. Oh.
And if you don't have any questions, but I guess the question is this helpful for you? And is there anything else you need to know?
No, I think this report is helpful when we get this.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey guys, can we do something about the zoning and the comprehensive plan? I feel like we need to schedule something to revise it before more things keep happening. Can we schedule
Well, the
that?
comp plan is a vision. It does, the comp plan is more a vision. It doesn't mean that's what we have to do. It's the code that we follow. The comp plan is what you can give to a developer for them to look at and maybe see what the vision of the city is. And I see what you're saying is there some wording in there that maybe we have to tweak? Yeah, I think it's worth looking at, but I also think it was misquoted in the paperwork we got that said that it was what we were going to do. The way it was worded in our paperwork, it implied that that's what we were going to do. And that wasn't what we had planned. But I see your concern, Uti, that maybe we need to look at maybe eliminating some of that. I don't know.
That's kind of what I was referring to. See again the areas and the zones and make sure that we're like 100%. I don't feel like we did I personally didn't do like a super thorough job, like going block by block, but I feel like if we wanna, you know, make sure that developers have the best information, I think we could do something about it.
It's a good idea if the planning commission has time and if there is staff time to periodically be reviewing the comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
Now, most places, particularly small towns, they don't do that very often. Like they wait until they're going to rewrite the whole thing. Other communities have a goal of saying, whether it's every 3 years or every 5 years, they go back and look at the plan and see if they need to make amendments to the plan. So it is a practice if you have the time to do it.
Yeah, but Mike, I think this is much simpler. So I heard tonight a number of the planning commissioners saying that the density issue was a little bit confusing. I'm being nice here. So it would be very easy to go in and make a surgical amendment to the comprehensive plan. It can be a text amendment and it can be very easily done. So if the commissioners feel with respect to the density issue that some of that needs to be fine-tuned, then I think that's a great thing for a work session.
And is it possible that maybe, I know certain boards, you can create like subcommittees or committees to do certain things. Is this an option if we wanted to, like, maybe a couple commissioners wanted to get together and try to figure out, come up with some ideas or proposals for the whole group? Is that a thing or is that not a thing?
That's a thing.
Oh, I think we could do that. It's like a subcommittee and then they present it to the whole committee in a work session to see which direction. Yeah, I think that's
That
stuff
way
we can
we are
do.
saving money.
It can be
you
done
know,
as long as you are consistent with the open meeting law in terms of how many commissioners are getting together. Because if you're discussing city business as opposed to a social event, the open meetings law of the state basically says when you have this many members together, then you have to provide a notice.
It's more than two, yeah.
Place where this occurs.
If it's more than two.
And would it be different or would it be easier in some way if we were to maybe also recruit 2 residents, random residents?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Would
it really,
but it still applies at the maximum of 2 people or not? 2 commissioners, sorry.
so it's two officials. So you could have, say, Ursula, you and Cindy, and then 2 other people or 3 other people in the neighborhood, and you would not have to notice.
I think Nina would probably be wise for her to look into that, because what they're doing is they're dealing with city business, even if they aren't officially appointed.
It depends on if it's an advisory board, but it's not a big deal to notice things. When you guys set it up, we'll look at it. Yeah, if it's an advisory committee to the governing board, it depends. Yeah, on how it's set up.
They're not making a decision.
Yeah.
It's always safer. There's different ways to notice it. There's notice of things just happen. It's not. We could talk about once it's set up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, so if we
Yeah,
can
no, I
maybe
would
get some information about how we can make that happen, that'll be great. Whenever.
Okay, is there anything else? Or are we ready to adjourn? Or we're in a work session. Are we ready to say goodnight?
Good night.
Sweet dreams.
Good night.
Cool, good night.
Thanks.
Good job, guys.
Thank you,
Good
everyone.
night.
Yeah, you were great today.
I gotta find how to get off of here. Leave, bye.